Hi, my name is Agnieszka. I'm working at Polydia and I'm a UI designer.
And I'm Rafał, and I'm an iOS developer.
And we will tell you about design that breaks down barriers. We will focus on mostly UI features, but we will also tell you some technical stuff about iOS mostly. But it will be pretty general, let's hope. And yeah, we will start with some facts about accessibility, and then we'll go to the case study of our implementation in our Insight project.
Okay, so at first, I'd like to start with a kind of a story. I'd like to show you a photo of me and my father. The photo has been taken recently, and the reason I chose it is because on this photo, well, we look rather happy and rather healthy. My father turned 55 this year, and he's in good shape, no major health problems. As you can see, he doesn't even wear glasses on this photo, and he does pretty much all of the things like driving a car. He watches TV without his glasses, and well, he doesn't normally wear them. But he has got some vision problems. So if he wants, for example, to read a book or to work on his computer, he needs to wear his glasses. He needs to take his glasses out of his pocket and put them on, and then he can proceed with the task he wants to do. And he also has got an iPhone, and he uses his iPhone just like we all do. So he reads news, he reads his emails on his phone, and he checks his bank account or the weather for tomorrow. So pretty much he does all the things that we normally do with our phones. And he's got the same problem with the phone as he does with his computer. So you'll probably think that he will take out his glasses, put them on, and then he could have a glance on his phone. But it's really rather inconvenient if you just want to perform a very simple task with your phone, and it's really inconvenient to have to put on the glasses every time. So for this problem, well, Apple came out with a solution. Everyone knows that you can enlarge your font in your phone. Just go to the preferences, select the bigger size, and hopefully all the applications will look like that. I know it's kind of funny, but it's actually quite useful. My father's phone really looks like that, and he really prefers it that way. So let's have a look at another application, which is LinkedIn, pretty popular application. And as you can see, even with a large font set in the preferences, it looks exactly the same as it had a smaller font set. So it just doesn't support this font size changes. It doesn't enlarge the font whenever you want it.
Yeah, so let's say that this is your iPhone, and as you can see, there are some of the most popular apps and the apps we all like to use. And let's say you have some vision problems, and you set your type to larger. And actually, yeah, can you? Okay, sorry. Actually, this is what you stay with. So not a lot of apps are actually. This is bad. Are actually providing dynamic types and implementing dynamic types. This is. That is okay. Okay, I will try to continue. And okay, so as you can see, a lot of the system apps of iOS, okay, thank you, are actually working with dynamic features, dynamic types, but sometimes also it doesn't work, and this happens. So this happened when I configured my new iPhone and I had the dynamic type set to the largest type possible. But yeah, it's just an exception. Usually it works. So just to be sure that we are all on the same page with accessibility, and we all know what accessibility is. So according to the iOS guidelines, accessibility is delivering a superior experience to every customer, including those with special needs. And this is very interesting because it's actually good design, and it doesn't really. Good designers should design for everyone, and this is pretty obvious, but actually it doesn't work this way. So we usually design just for the people that are happy, fully equipped, healthy, and not so sober actually, and they know how to use the phone. So why should we do actually accessibility? For us, it was a lot about quality and making products that are just better than even the most popular products on the market. It was also about the user experience, so making better user experience for everyone. And also to challenge ourselves, because I guess we just like to learn new things, and it was a lot of research and a lot of testing also, and just evaluating. And last but not least, to make people happy.
Yeah, people like, for example, Stevie Wonder, who's probably one of the most famous blind people on earth. And he once said that there's nothing on the iPhone or the iPad that you can do and that I can't do, which is actually a nice phrase. And he was actually very thankful for Apple and Steve Jobs for making the iPad and iPhone accessible for everyone. So if you're still not convinced that accessibility is an important topic, just let's have a look at some raw data. So there was a survey taken by WebIM company, which is Web Accessibility in Mind. That's what it stands for. And it's a company providing services connected with making web pages and desktop applications and also mobile applications accessible for everyone. And they've taken a survey amongst 2,500 of screen readers users. So these users use the screen readers on various types of devices like desktops, mobile devices, and well, 70% of them of these users use screen readers on mobile as well, not only desktop. And the interesting thing is that iOS is the most popular platform amongst screen readers users, although it's not the most popular platform in general society. So that may mean that iOS has got some better accessibility features, like better screen reader probably than Android. Another interesting point from the survey are the reasons for inaccessibility. So as we know, there are a lot of applications that are not accessible for everyone. And the main reason for that is the lack of awareness, simply. That people don't know that accessibility is an important topic, and but there is a group of people that needs like special care and special functionality in their devices and in the applications just to be able to use them. Another reason is just lack of necessary skills or knowledge to make their products accessible. The third reason is fear that accessibility features will destroy the look and feel of the application, which is usually not true, because normally these features are very transparent for normal users without any problems. And the last reason for not making our products accessible is the lack of budget, which is kind of surprising because we thought it would be the main reason for people not doing their products accessible. But only 10% of people had problems with their budget in case of accessibility.
Okay, so we said about some really bad examples and apps that don't provide the dynamic type feature, but there are some great examples, and we should remember about them. And actually, if you want to test some kind of apps, these are some really good examples, and they have great voiceover and also dynamic types. And for example, Twitter and Facebook use voiceover as I don't see what's going on there, but it's okay. Facebook is the last one, good. They actually have this feature that they read the whole post for you. So they read the author, the date, the location, sometimes something about the picture. So it's really good. I personally have some troubles with scrolling because it's very like skippy, but it's still working. So to make these kind of apps and to take examples from these companies, we have to convince the client. Sometimes the client is also like this. No, okay. Sometimes it is the client, and sometimes it is our boss when we work at a product company or something. And just to make sure that his face doesn't look like on this GIF that you should see. No? Oh, you can hear me? No? Oh, no? No, okay. It's bad. Can you hear me now? No? Yeah? Okay. So the first thing is considering it obvious while estimating the project. So at first, when you make the plan, when you count the cost for the client, you should just consider the thing that you have to do, just some basics. You could also try to show their app or the client's app or some kind of apps that are similar to them, and provide, turn on voiceover, for example, and just try to do something. And usually it's very frustrating and it's very eye-opening also for the client. Don't forget about the statistics. You probably know the statistics from WWDC or Google I/O, so we won't repeat it again, but these are big numbers and these are millions of people. So actually, how do we know? We decided to learn and we decided to challenge ourselves on an Insight project because it was a perfect playground and it was great to learn on a project that wasn't very tight with the deadline and with the budget. So we could try a lot of stuff, test and evaluate. And the project is called Shuttle.
Yes, so we were very lucky to be involved in that project, and actually it's a small application for Android and iOS, and well, I was responsible for an iOS version, and it is a small application that we use to ship new versions of the projects for our clients. So the client installs the Shuttle application on their device. Whenever the new version of their application appears, they see it on the list, and they can just install it with one click on their device. So this is how it looks. It's fairly simple, fairly standard design, with a few nice tweaks. So let's talk about iOS now and how we actually implemented accessibility in our application. Well, what tools iOS provides for us? What tools can we use? The most important one is the screen reader in iOS, which is called VoiceOver. We've got Siri, which is also considered as an accessibility features because you can do many things with your phone just by talking to it and not really touching it and not really looking at the screen. We've got Screen Speak, which is a feature that is not only for people with vision problems, but actually for everyone because it lets you it just reads the whole content of a screen for you. So you just swipe down from top to bottom with 2 fingers, and then the whole screen is read by the screen reader. Dictation, which lets you input some data into the phone without using any keyboard, so without touching the phone. And the dynamic types, so the thing I talked about before, so the fonts that change their size according to the settings chosen in the preferences by the user. And there are also other available features like zoom, which zooms in the whole screen, like magnifier, which zooms in only the part of the screen which we are interested in. We've got display accommodations, which lets you play with the colors. It lets you invert the colors. It lets you filter some colors out. Very useful for people who are colorblind. And you can also play with white balance, for example, here. And there are also other features, small ones, which are actually cost-free, so you don't have to really implement it in your apps. It doesn't cost any effort, but it's really good to check how your app looks with various settings chosen by the user in the preferences. So let's have a deeper look into dynamic types. So normally on iOS, if you set up, for example, a UI label and you want to choose a font for it, you will do something like this just to support the dynamic types. So you just call this method and choose the style that you're interested in, and the system will determine the size of the font which you get. And it does it based on this table, which is really rather simple, but it's got a lot of values. So in the top row, you've got different settings that user can choose in the preferences, and on the column on the left are different styles that we can ask for. And well, the disadvantage of that is that you will always, by using this method, you will always end up with a standard font for the given version of the system. So on different versions of the system in iOS, you will end up with different font, and you never know what it will be because it depends on the version that you're your user have installed on his device. So you could implement it by yourself for your custom font, but it's really a lot of code, and it's really rather stupid code. So we came up with a small, much simpler solution. So if you have a look at this code, in a Shuttle application, we used open sans font. We've got 3 weights of a font, like medium, extra light, and regular, as you can see. And we just use the method that I told you about before. So a method that gives us a standard font, and we just take the size out of it and apply it to our custom font, which is probably the simplest way to support the dynamic types for the custom fonts in our application. So this is a login screen again, and this is how it looks with slightly bigger font setup. And as you can see, everything fits quite nicely in a screen. The design is not destroyed. Again, for the project screen, is pretty much the same story. Everything fits more or less nicely on a screen. And as you can see, some of the buttons at the navigation bar are not enlarged. That's because we always want to prioritize our content, so not all of the things have to be enlarged. Because there are some buttons which actually never change, so we don't really have to make them bigger, because the user will just get used to it and he will know what's actually there, what this button does. And these are the styles that we chose for particular labels. So this is really a designer's job. So the designer just have to go through the table that I've shown you just a minute ago, and you'll have to check how the application will look with different settings chosen by the user in the preferences. Okay, so let's talk about another feature, like VoiceOver, which is the screen reader on iOS. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it can be really difficult to use for the person who never used it before, because it completely changes the way you use your phone. Because when you have a VoiceOver turned on, when you just touch the screen with one finger or swipe it with one finger, you will not perform actually any action. You will just select an element, and the element selected will be read by the VoiceOver. So the description of it will be read by VoiceOver. This is what you will hear, and this is what blind person will hear. And what they hear is actually what they see, let's say. So again, this is the screen of our application. And for example, if we choose the authorize button, if we select it in VoiceOver, it will read its title automatically. We don't have to actually set anything up, just to have this button described. So it will read authorized button. And this description is actually provided by these 2 properties on a view, which is label, which will be automatically set to the title of a button, and the trait, which is the type of an element. It can be a button, it can be a text field, it can be an image, and there are actually a few other types that we can choose from, but it's a closed subset of things. And there is also a hint, which will be empty by default for the button, for example, but we can add the hint manually. This is actually our job to do it. And for example, for authorized button, the hint could be that it takes you through the authorization process, for example. And we've got also the frame and the value, so the properties that are not very, I mean, they're useful, but not very popular. You wouldn't probably use them very often, because frame is just altering the tappable area of an element or the selectable area of an element, and the value is used for sliders and things like that, just to describe the value that the slider represents at this particular moment.
Okay, so let's take a look at an example to make sure that we all know how VoiceOver is working. And this is Tinder. You maybe know it. I don't want to ask, but you all know that this is a very visual application, and it's very hard to make it accessible for people that have some vision troubles. And I understand that, but they actually ignore it totally. So when you go to Tinder and you have VoiceOver turned on, you can just go through the screen, and the things that you will hear are some kind of labels that are not actually accessibility labels, but IDs or something like that. So the voiceover reads, for example, this icon as settings underscore button. This is a discover underscore button, so it doesn't say anything about the state you're actually in and what is possible to do, and if it really is a switch or a button or something like that. Then matches underscore button, and it goes that way through all of the screen. This is read properly because it's just text, so it does it automatically. But then we have some cool features that are actually not possible to use. So like gamey underscore super underscore button doesn't say anything about the super like and what it does. Also, they ignore the icons for mutual interests and mutual friends, so you just don't know how many of them you have. So what we propose and what could be done actually is, for the first thing, so proper accessibility labels. So here it would be settings button. So the settings is a label and the trait is the trait is button. Yes. Then it could be read that this is a switch mode and you are now in the Tinder mode active. Matches button. Andrzej, 25 years old, could be said, so we know what the 25 stands for, and then working at or studying at this kind of place. Then, yeah, the buttons should be labeled also properly, and actually it could be said that there are 49 mutual friends and 1 mutual interest. Also, when you go to your iPhone gallery or pictures, you can see that the algorithm is somehow reading that the picture is light or dark or sharp or blurred. And maybe Tinder could do something with it. So, for example, Andrzej could be a light picture, sharp, one face, smiling, or something like that. And they could do a lot more about it if they want to. So let's get to some UI elements that we probably all recognize. So this is just a text field with login and an authorize button. And what will VoiceOver say by default here is that the label would be login, so it will just read the text and you don't have to worry about it. The trait would be text field, and there will actually be a hint that is double tap and to edit, sorry. So for the first time when we did it, we actually add our hint just to make sure that the user knows what's going on here. And we found out that, yeah, this will happen by default, so you don't have to worry. It won't happen in case of buttons, for example, but the text fields are covered. Another example, a cell.
Yeah. Sorry. So let's have a look at the table view cell. So the cell looks like this, and if you assume that the circle and the 33 team members are the UI labels, so like a static text, if you select the cell, the whole cell will be read. So the voiceover will read circle, 33 team members, and that's it. But the things get really complicated when you want to have like custom elements in your cell, and you still want the description of them to be read by voiceover. So for example, if we make the 33 team members to be a button, it will not be read like by default. So if you select the cell, in this case, it will just read circle and nothing else. So in this case, for example, we could alter the label to be a circle 33 team members, because we still want this information to be read by voiceover.
Yeah, exactly like that.
And the automatic trait, of course, is a button here, because for the cell, it is the trait automatically is a button, which is good. Well.
Yeah, and we implemented in Shuttle some more advanced UI elements and features. And for example, we decided to do something like a long tap. And this was also a challenge to know how to turn it to an accessible feature for everyone. So by default, the voiceover will read, as Rafał explained it to you, the circle 33 team members. You can just adjust to it. And then the trait would be button. But actually here the problem could be that the user doesn't know that there is an action that he can go to or something, do something with it. So the hint here could be double tap and hold to see actions. And then when he does it, the action bar from the bottom will slide, and then he can tap on the icon or something or a button, and then the voiceover would read that this is an archive, for example, button. And maybe this is important. The double tap and hold is actually not something that we found out. And you can find it, for example, when you want to delete an app from your phone and you long tap on it and you can move it around. And the voiceover will also say double tap and hold here. Another example with a cell is actually a swipe to delete that we all know. And this is a hard one, actually. It's not... there are some opinions that it's maybe not at all accessible for people that are not power users. And we decided not to do it in Shuttle. We decided on the long tap. But if you have to do it, and if it's necessary, you can use the rotor, which is a really cool feature. And this is something that can be personalized by the user. And it actually appears everywhere on your phone. So in an app and outside of the app. And if you label something as an action, the voiceover will do a lot for you. So it will read the hint that these actions are available, and then the rotor will read that actions available are archived, for example. We also thought about some states in between. So we obviously wanted to label everything that we had on the state screen, but also, for example, here we had this pretty basic thing that goes through the login screen to your dashboard. So a spinner that indicates some kind of time progress. And we wanted to be sure that if you have a really slow connection, or the user has, they will know what's going on, and just maybe to turn off the Wi-Fi and restart it or something. So we decided on the label login in progress. It's very simple. So just the whole screen could be actually labeled, and then the user knows what's going on. Also in Shuttle, we have this feature about picking the avatar photo. It's actually made out of our logotype of Polydia. And this is also a very visual feature, but we know that there is only 9 pictures to pick from. And we could also label them as something that sounds familiar. So for example, a Lord Vader avatar or a Martian avatar, R2-D2 avatar. Maybe the person doesn't see it, but he can imagine what it's about or something. We could also change the trait here to image, because by default it would be something...
Yeah, the default one would be a button, because, I mean, it depends on an implementation, because if you use collection view or something like that here, it will just read the button, which is a default trait for the cell, collection view cell or UI table view cell.
Yeah, and the hint could be double tap to select, just so he knows what to do with it.
So a few words about cost here. A lot of people are worried that it will cost them a lot of time and effort to make their apps accessible. But from our experience, it really shows that, that it's not true. I mean, we invested quite a lot of time just to get some skills, just to investigate the topic. And I mean, the first step you're going to do with accessibility is probably going to cost you quite a lot of time just to understand how it really works and what should you do and what should you not do. But once you know what you're doing, well, it's not really difficult. And as I shown you before, there are just a few properties that you have to set on an UI elements, and this is mainly what you have to do. So it's not really a great effort to make your app accessible and provide a much better experience for a larger group of users.
Yeah, so just to sum up with some kind of conclusions about the workflow, because at the beginning we've heard a lot of opinions that you should do it at the beginning of the project or at the end of the project, or I don't know, anytime. And our conclusion is that if you take the design timeline or something and you make it super simple just for the case of this presentation, and you spread it to 2 elements, so creation and supervision, I personally would start with accessibility from the beginning, because it's very important to know how you can provide a good user experience also for the blind people or people with normal vision standards or something, I don't know, and also some different disabilities. But also accessibility is not only about health, it's also about just making good contrasts, making the type large enough so it's readable and everything like that. For the first time for me, I also had some troubles with the dynamic type, and that the designer somehow should adjust to the text styles, and maybe if it's possible, use a single font and as little text styles as possible, and text sizes also. But you have to remember that actually accessibility will stay with you through the whole project, and you have to test the UI and make some kind of maybe user test if you have the possibility, evaluate, try to change the labels, because it's when you work with a cool developer, you can just talk to him and it's not a problem to change some stuff. And yeah, but it's very, very important to try the things that you did and to make sure that it's working well.
And from a development perspective, you can actually add accessibility anytime you want to your app, because it won't probably affect the general architecture. So even if you have your app ready, or even if it's in the App Store, you can still update it with accessibility features. And yeah, the accessibility mechanisms are constructed in a way that let you add them to your UI pretty much anytime you want. So you don't really have to think about it from the beginning.
Okay, so thank you very much. If you have some questions, feel free. If not, also great.
Have you been testing with the people who are using accessibility on the daily basis, and how did you find them, and how did it look like to work with them?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a very good one. We really wanted to. We are actually not yet finished with Shuttle, but we are searching for people for testing. But we did it for a month now, I guess.
Yeah, we actually have some contacts. We talked to some people, but we actually haven't managed to meet them yet. It's not that simple as it seems like, but definitely we want to do it in the near future.
Any other questions?
Yeah, there was one there.
Is there any way to deal with third-party applications? For example, you want to open Twitter from your app, but Twitter doesn't provide any support for any disabilities.
So sorry, the question was about what to do when the app is not working.
Is there any solution?
Is there any solution?
No, if I didn't make their app accessible, you can't really do nothing. If you're a blind person, it's just not an app for you. You can't use it. But Twitter actually supports accessibility quite well. Yeah, but there's no solution. They have to make their app accessible simply.
Yeah, another one there.
I may ask about microphone. Could you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you know, or are there usable libraries, or let's say libraries for image processing? For example, your app opens some kind of website which doesn't support disabilities, but it may translate or read from image that it shows head or something. Is it used in iOS? Or is it any solution for such problem?
So we haven't actually searched for libraries that do that, but if you, for example, open the Photos app on your iPhone, it will tell you some things about an image. If you select an image, it will tell that the image is sharp or not sharp, and for example, that there is a face on it, or two faces, or something like that, and that the image is bright or dark. So I'm not sure if it's a built-in mechanism or it was some kind of closed library. So I don't know if there is an API for that we can use. But definitely there are some well, some things that we can do about it. So probably there are some libraries, but I don't know because we haven't searched it.
Any more questions? You can win a cup actually, but okay. Okay, so thank you so much.